This is my Ram 1500 pickup truck. Here's the temperature gauge down here. Temperature currently at 0. There's a few things that could go wrong as far as the gauge not working. Two areas that I'm going to look at, and I think these are the two main reasons why the gauge inside may not be working. But I'm going to look at the coolant temperature sensor. In order to get access to this temperature sensor, it's behind and underneath the alternator. And on top of the alternator is the air filter box. So I have to take the air filter box off first. First, what I'm going to do is take off this hose to the air filter box. I have to loosen the clamp. I've got to loosen that screw to lift up. You also have to take off this hose, this breather hose here. I think you can notice there's some green coolant leaking. I just noticed, so I'm going to replace this hose. It's a short piece right there. With the long screwdriver, I have to take this clamp off for the heater hose. I loosen the clamp and I'll pull the hose off. Took the heater hose off. It was a little stuck, so I had to pry it off with the screwdriver. Coolant coming out of there, just a little bit, but I put a stick in there to stop that. Right next to it is the water coolant sensor right here, and you see one of the probes. This is the harness to the coolant sensor, and I'm going to test the harness, make sure the harness is working. We're getting some voltage through there. I took this bottom clip off so I can have access to this, and I'm going to test to make sure voltage is coming through. I'm going to turn on the ignition without starting the engine. I've got the multimeter set up. Black wire to COM, the red wire to ohms, and we got DC volts at 200. Black wire, I'll put it to a ground like here, and then the red wire to the probe. Yep, power's coming through. This is the temperature sender that we need to install. We've got to make sure that you get the sender. On the driver's side is the sensor. It looks very similar to this, but it has two prongs. Notice that this one only has one prong, and so this is the sender that is connected to the instrument gauge inside the cab. This is where the harness is, and you can see there's only one electrode probe. After testing the harness and also testing the sender itself, the temperature gauge is still not moving. So I think the problem is the temperature gauge. I need to take off this frame here. There's 4 screws that you need to remove. One is the ashtray. There's 2 screws there, and on this tray here, it's hard to see, but there's 2 screws, one here and on the other side, and you just remove that. And then there's clips behind this to remove the frame, so you can pull this off. You notice those clips. And you've got to move the transmission stick here down. I move the shifter down, and then this steering wheel tilt, I move the steering wheel itself down, and I remove the frame. Instrument cluster, there's 4 bolts. Here, there's one down there, and there's one down there, The shifter indicator cable is right here. And I need to take that off from the bottom here. So I have to take this cover off. And there's basically 4 screws, very simple. This one right here, there's another one down here. There's another one over here, and there's another one below, right here. So this cable you could see there, right there from the instrument cluster. It wraps around, and then it's on the other side. You can see there, it wraps around, and it's connected there. Is this? It's clipped on here, and I've already loosened it, but you've got to take that off and just fish it back. We pull it out this way, and that's what it looks like. There's 2 electrical connectors on the instrument cluster you got to remove. You see that one there on one side, and then on the other side it's the white one there. On the back of this there's a clip you've got to press down. Connectors off this way. Same on this other side. The harness connector, there's a button here. You press that, you can remove it. You know, sometimes there's a like a paper cover, but this one doesn't have it. So if we look on this side, here it is, the temperature section. So the temperature items are, the connections are right here. Well, that one, these solders look okay. I'm not sure about that one. I want to take these screws off. There were 7 screws. I didn't 3 up there, and then 4 down here. And I was able to take it off. The temperature gauge is held by these screws here, so I'll take those off. Here's the temperature gauge, and I removed it, and here it is right here. It corresponds to this area right here of the circuit board. Okay, so using my multimeter here, I'm on continuity, and I checked these circuits here and traced it back to the connector here, and there's continuity. I can't tell if this is positive or negative, but that one's okay, and that one's okay also. Check the continuity back over here to the connector. I checked this one, there is continuity, and I checked it back over here to the connector. So that tells me the circuit, either positive or negative from here, is flowing into this connection here to the coolant gauge. And here's the coolant gauge. Great thing, I do not have to buy a separate gauge, temperature gauge, because look, it's the first time it's reading a temperature. So the only problem that I had on that circuit board was the screws. So all I had to do was tighten the screws down onto the gauge, because I think the gauge to the circuit board were not in contact with each other. So I just tightened it down, and look what we have here. The temperature gauge is working for the first time on this truck.